So welcome everybody to the May 25th Ortelius Governing Board Meeting. Go ahead, take it away, Tracy.
So we do have quorum now that Kat is here. Thank you, Kat, for bringing us up to quorum. The one thing we're working on is the Technology Oversight Committee, which apparently is going to become more important than I thought. There are potentially 5 nominees right now, which includes Vincent Dannon from Red Hat, who is pretty much Andy's boss. Brian Fox, who's the CTO of Sonatype. Steve, Garima Bajpai, who was, I don't know, is she on the TOC for the CDF, Steve? Yeah, you're muted. Yes, she is. She runs the ambassador program for the CDF, and Andy Gardner, who is with Dynatrace and is working on CD events and kept it. So we have 5 positions and we have 5 nominees. I'm thinking that instead of doing an election, we just have the board nominate them, since all of them would be elected anyway.
I think just to get in the habit of it, I would go the other way and just do a mailing list +1.
Well, if I'm going to do a proper vote, I have to run it through OPA and do a regular vote. It would be great if I didn't have to do that. Just
Okay, I can go either way on that.
Hey, Sergio. And I think it's an interesting having Brian Fox and Vincent Dannon on the board, and Andy from Dynatrace. I think it's an interesting combination of people. And then we get Garima, so we have at least 1 woman on there, and Steve. Seems like a pretty good board. I spoke to both Vincent and let me see if I got anything. And Brian, when we were at CDCon, and both of them indicated that they would be willing to do that. I've reached out to Brian Fox yesterday to confirm that he was still okay with that. I think that he'll be. He was interested. He thought as long as it wasn't something that he'd have to do every month. And Vincent was the same way. So the way we have it written up is that we would hold meetings once a quarter unless there was a one-off that needed to be held. And I think having that cadence opens it up to bringing in these higher level VPs and CTOs from other companies.
And how long were nominations open to? Or are they closed now?
We were supposed to get nominations. I think I'd have to look at the email, but June 1st is when we were going to start voting.
So I would motion that if we do not have any new nominations before June 1st, that we go ahead and approve the 5 folks that are on the list.
Okay, otherwise we'll run an election.
Well, we'll run an election otherwise.
Okay, that would be great.
I'll second it. Works for me.
And
any discussion?
Well, we don't have Siddharth here, so any discussion on this? I think we kind of pretty much talked about it. All right, anybody against? All right, motion passes unanimously.
All right, and I will send out June 1st. I'll send out a email to the dev group that indicates that we had 5 nominations and all 5 will be, because a vote's not required. Seems redundant to do it. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm assuming by next 5 days or 6 days that we'll have, the list is going to stand as is.
I think so. I don't think that we'll, I think that we've got people who are interested in being part of it have raised their hand, and it worked out that there's 5.
At least it's going to be easier.
Yeah,
Yes.
I like it when things go easy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No complaints.
And in terms of these meetings, we probably need to get in the habit of approving the minutes of the previous meeting. We haven't done that. Just a point of order.
Yes, we should.
All right. You want to go ahead and do that, Anne Marie?
Yeah, sure. So I'll put up a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I will second that.
Any discussion?
And any discussion, any corrections that we need to make to the minutes? Okay, let's go ahead and anybody against? All right, their motion passes.
Cool. And I think that is pretty much all I had in my notes that we needed to take care of for this call. We did have a really great, for those of you who have not been on the call, Sergio, Anne Marie, and Kat. We had a really good visibility at CDCon this year. It's pretty cool that both Syme and Steve got CDF level awards. Sasha got his award. It was a fun show. I got to do a keynote at Open Source Summit, which was kind of cool being on the big stage, where I promoted both. I promoted Ortelius, talked about an evidence catalog. And I think one of the most interesting things that I learned that really, piqued my interest, and we're going to do a follow-up call with Fidelity Investments. They built their own evidence store. I'm going to share with you all the link really quick here. Actually, I'll share it with you, but then I'll be sure and email it to you, because it talks about here is the link.
Well, maybe we just need a 1 or 2 paragraph blog post that links over to it.
Yeah, I've got to do a press
a lot.
release on everybody's stuff. So yes, I'll try to do that. But just for the board's knowledge, I'll share my screen really quick here and show you their image of what they built, which I find it pretty fascinating. So here is how they see the world in terms of being able to have a mature software delivery platform. I think I need to. You can see it. So here you notice there's it says pipeline intelligence coming from the pipeline, and then they put it in an evidence store. I have reached out to the individual who wrote this. I'm scheduling a call with that individual for the architecture team, and I'll make sure that the governing board is invited to that call. And I asked him if we could compare notes on what we're storing. So this is the first time I've seen and they talk about it in here that they wrote, this is homegrown. I don't know if they're doing versioning of it. I would kind of doubt that, but you never know how they've built it. I'm very curious how they've built it. But the reason why I bring it up is because it bodes well for us, considering it's what now the CD Foundation is pushing out there in terms of a good user story around a mature software delivery model. The other hilarious thing that happened was I was on a SBOM panel at OpenSSF, and a person from Checkmark asked the question, how do you aggregate application level SBOMs in a microservice environment? I almost jumped off my stool. I wondered if Steve paid him to ask the question. And in that, I was able to say, check out Ortelius. That's exactly what we're doing. So overall, we had a really fun time at CDCon. And like I said, Ortelius got some really good exposure. And there was some real interest in this idea of an evidence catalog. So the team is in a good place. Fatih Demagrici said that in terms of activity, Ortelius is their most active project. So kudos to us all for building this and keeping it going.
And then also we met with, I can't remember their name, but they're from Google, and they work on the Guac project, which is the dependency graphing. And that meeting's, I think, next Friday.
I believe so. Yes.
Like the 5th or something like that. I don't know the time, but we'll make sure everybody knows about it, and we're going to compare notes with them as well.
Yeah, and what Brendan told me was that they're interested in possibly integrating where they would provide the graphs for the dependencies, and we would provide the data. So we might be, we're starting to create a power station here with bringing in other open source tools, because that's the way to win, no doubt. We have Red Hat now committed, and if we had some teams from Google doing some work to help us too, it'd be great.
I have something around it. Let me share something, and that I think is connect with what we were talking about here. So news from Red Hat. We have now at Summit launched something that is called Trusted Software Supply Chain. It sounds something for you? Like having pipelines and doing it in a secure way, like checking SBOMs and images and other stuff. So it says like, well, this was presented by Bernd Sutter. He's like the Director of Product Management Global. And I already told like, hey, I love the presentation. We are already doing some stuff like that in the open source. Even we are already working with Emporus, that is already something internal from Red Hat. So like make a lot of sense that maybe we can like, I don't know, just check like at what points maybe we can do stuff together, maybe reutilize, improve, I don't know, but it's just opening the conversation. So he asked me just like wait until this Red Hat Summit is ended, because they are like today with customers in the conference. But I opened a meeting with him and with of course the architect that is working on this solution to maybe just check like what if it's something like similar, and maybe we can do more together, more than over on Porus. So
yeah,
I will schedule the meeting.
I think
Yes,
you should
Marie?
invite me. I think you should invite me.
For sure, I'm going to. Yeah, I need more. We can be more. The more and more we will be better.
I'm an architect working on this solution.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a lot of better than I thought.
Yeah.
I thought it will be great to have you, but now it's like definitely I'm going to join in the meeting.
I think that's interesting that we're talking now about a store, right? How do you store this information and start using it, consuming it, acting on it, enabling it, leveraging it, using OPA for policies around it, and ultimately AI. That's where that's going to come from. So that's super exciting. And I'm so happy, Anne-Marie, that you're on that project.
Yeah, I mean, we had to kind of be a little quiet about it until now, but hey, now it's public.
Now it's public. Yeah, I didn't, it was, yeah, well, I think we were in the similar situation, Mayuri, like, well, you were in the project, but on me, I was looking at, but I couldn't say anything. I was just like waiting for this public, because the internal presentation was a few weeks ago released. But now we can talk about this, so it's going to be interesting. It's super extensive. I mean, this is not one thing. It's like a lot of things going on. It's like a lot of different open source project and different stuff, like just glue in one, maybe like a prefabricate process, something like that. But yeah, there is a lot of opportunity to participate because there is a lot of moving parts here. So I think it's going to be a great conversation.
I do too.
And just one quick question, Tracy, was Fidelity calling it evidence store or evidence catalog?
Evidence store.
Okay, because I'm wondering if we should shift our wording slightly, because right now we call it an evidence catalog,
Sure.
to change, since this Red Hat presentation is talking about a store, Fidelity is talking about a store, maybe we should get on that bandwagon as well.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's just,
IBM calls it an evidence store as well. They wrote their own from scratch. This solution's using Recore from Tecton.
I'm not familiar with that one. I'll have to,
What's it called, Anne Marie?
Recore, REKOR.
Huh.
I'm not sure, like we should map functionality to see where it overlaps with Ortelius and where it doesn't. But
Right.
basically it's storing evidence of when you do certain checks in your pipeline, like have you done a static application security test? Are your images signed? Things like that. It's storing all that as well as a record that the build happened, that this was the build system and that we generated the SBOM. And then later when you go to deploy, they call it the enterprise contract, where it's checking that all these things happened, and you can't deploy to production until all the checks that you have turned on pass.
yeah, it sounds similar to the OpenSSF scorecard, where you have certain things that have to be checked off to make sure your supply chain is securer.
I will share the links because the links, the solution is mounted in the cloud service of Red Hat. So you just create an account, you can go into OpenShift and you can look at this working. That is mainly a lot of microservices and Tecton doing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, share the link. I'd like to dive into it.
Okay.
Yeah, our goal was to have like a SALSA level 3 compliant system.
Salsa is the goal. Sounds funny, but salsa is the goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the conversation has begun, right?
I mean, yeah, we know
Let's figure
it
it
to happen, and it's happening and in everywhere. Like
I know, and we've been working on this now for, as an open source project for 2 years, and as a project that we were trying to get to an open source level for 1 year. So I'd say we had some vision on that. That's where people would finally figure out. And the thing about it is, in microservices just makes it harder, because when you have an application, you have all of the components together that you can do a check at the application organizational level. With microservices, you have to do it for every single one. So you don't get you lose that organizational picture. And that is what we do bring to the table, is being able to create that organizational picture. And that is indeed what the SALSA folks with Guac was interested in, is that ability to aggregate, snapshot, and version.
Yeah, there's probably some good synergy there. So the thing that I've been working on is the Red Hat Trusted Application Pipeline, which is kind of half of this announcement, which is, the CI/CD and the enterprise contract side of things. It would right now just treat each microservice as a standalone application, I think, right?
Yeah.
And if you had onboarded several into one workspace, you would see that the same team was working on them, but it's not really designed for any kind of global enterprise-wide view.
Right.
It's kind of not what it's trying to do.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to having a discussion with that team. I think comparing notes would be great. because we are now in, we're now in a new market. And we're the open source tool in that market. So it's pretty exciting. And you might feel like having these other tools are competitive, but I can tell you, as a company, OpenMake Software, we struggled being I used to call us the lonely furniture store at the end of a road that had no streetlights. Nobody wanted to go down there because nobody else was doing it. And people would say, well, if this is so important, why isn't anybody else doing it? And I'd be like, I don't know. I wish they were. I wish they were doing it. So I'm glad that Ortelius is it's been down a lonely road with no streetlights. And now we put streetlights in and there's another furniture store next to us, which creates a marketplace. And that is what we've been missing, is a marketplace. So now that that's announced, I think I'm going to probably do a blog on this new marketplace of evidence stores and what the industry is working on, and let Ortelius be part of that story. There's absolutely nothing wrong with competition. It's actually super healthy.
Also relevant, I was going to say, is the Backstage, I would say.
Yeah.
I think I heard that you were looking into that a little bit too. So Red Hat just announced a Red Hat supported version of Backstage. And that's another place where a microservices catalog.
Yes. So Backstage, what Backstage is really, really good at, it's also its problem. Backstage is really, really good at generating a pipeline for the microservice. So you as a developer, you've got a Python module you need to, start working on. You can go in and you can say, these are the tools I want, and it's going to generate for you a pipeline for like a Jenkins pipeline. The problem with Backstage is it generates a Jenkins pipeline. And the industry needs to start, again, I'm looking the future, the industry needs to start getting away from pipelines. So for example, in Steve's chat at Open Source Summit, he pointed out that Jenkins alone has 20 million known pipelines. If we want to add SBOM generation to it, we have to go and manually edit those pipelines. Backstage just creates more pipelines. Once you create your pipeline, if you want to update it, you have to go update your pipeline. But it does create a catalog of microservices and their tools that they're using. But
yeah, I think it's maybe a way to see it, or maybe like the initial way that Backstage was like maybe put in the hands of the developer. Today, as Red Hat, at least in the developer hub, is like the enterprise version, it's more about like one-page integration and encapsulating complexity. It's not necessarily like doing pipeline. It's more like, hey, I'm just like putting in a view, like capturing all the data I need, like inputs and stuff like that. And after that, probably it's going to be other thing, but it's more like a one page to say, hey, I can check the dependency, I can check the status, I can check it. It's more about like having in one place all the information needed, the personal responsibility and stuff like that. So at least in the pipeline side, we are at least a lot of the folks are like not trying to relate that much Backstage with pipeline itself. It's more about encapsulating any complexity and be like a self-service more than that. So, and that way, now there is a lot of people doing plugins. The concept of pipeline is less because it's bigger the range of plugins at what you can do. So it's at the beginning maybe it was like 5 plugins, and maybe that was like top of the one that you use it. But right now it's like a small part, and you have like a more wide picture about what to do with Backstage. So it's going to evolve a little bit. And I was on the KubeCon looking at the release and the new feature, and it's more about it to be more simple to the companies to adapt it, like more modularity, independency, like less builds are more or on the fly change and stuff like that. So I think it's going to have the capability to be more flexible and have adaptability for how you want to be Backstage in your company. So This is a little change, and maybe we can revisit how we can maybe even use it. I don't know, or complement.
Yeah,
with it.
I've always said that if we could, and Brad McCoy worked on this, and I don't know how far he got with it, but the idea would be to bolt into Backstage to do all the back-end versioning and the aggregation.
Even we can do our own plugins from just taking the best of Ortelius and put it in just inside of. That's the thing at the end for Backstage. It's like, what do you want to? You need this. We have it. We have this on Ortelius, and you can just create a plugin and bring this information that is valuable on Ortelius into Backstage, and that's all.
Yeah, so we've had discussions with I can't think of her last name. Maria is her first name, who's the CTO of Rody.
Oh yeah,
I'm
you
not,
have that with Rody.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, all things to think about, but again, it's all good. And I think that Backstage is about to graduate. Did they graduate yet? Does anybody know? They have the adoption.
Need to check.
They're working on it. I don't know if they've gone through the formal
No,
process.
at least in KubeCon, they nominate they tell about the new graduate, but it wasn't Backstage on that
Okay.
announcement, at least so far.
Yeah, it would be great if it did graduate.
I think so. Even now, there is an enterprise in Red Hat. I think at some point it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, it's an enterprise plugin stuff, not the Backstage itself, but for sure it's going to happen.
And that's what Ortelius lacks. Ortelius would be doing better in terms of adoption if we had a larger company adopting it. And that's what the community looks for in terms of adoption. They look for who else is using it. Backstage was written at Spotify, is that right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the main maintainer are still from Spotify.
Yeah.
So Tracy, on the AI front that you're talking about, right? So I've shared a document, and like Cisco already has this, pipeline security thing. They call it like a Corona scan or something. And they're like also working on the AI front. So like there was one idea, I don't know like if that is being worked upon or not. So like once you fix some, CVEs or something, so there are like multiple microservices. So there can be like a notification or something that can tell like other microservices, like you should do this to fix this vulnerability. So I think that perspective we miss out today in our Ortelius, if we can like think about on those horizons itself, right?
Yes.
Because they're like already thinking of AI integrating with the security things, SBOM and other things. And there is a lot of redundancy as well, right? Steve will agree on this. He has to do like the same work when the security report goes bad, right?
Right, exactly.
Hey, Anne-Marie, could you snag that link that Utkar just put in the chat and put it in the notes?
Yep, I will do that.
And then Sergio, can you share that document that you showed?
Yeah, I put it on Discord. I'm going to put it here too. I just put in one link because the one link had like the links for the other stuff. So this is like the main one.
Okay.
I'll put it under
Utkarsh?
interesting developments in the news.
Yeah.
Okay.
Utkarsh, is there any like examples of the output for like the Corona reports and stuff?
I'll see if I can find like I know that is there, but that is not public. So
Yeah, that's why I was
like,
curious if they have anything public yet.
yeah. So when like Sergio started talking about this pipeline, right? I like thought of searching this if that is something like if that is online public or somewhere. So I found like this document, but they haven't mentioned anything there. So it's like very sophisticated tool they have created. They are using like in the backend they are using Blackbug, Swift, Trivi. They're using a lot many other, open source tool to generate all these reports.
Right. I'm just curious how they're sorting the data and make, in the visualization. So that's the hardest part. Is,
Yeah, right now Texas OAG is having us work on the dashboard that we built out for them. And it's a lot of data.
especially when you talk about versioning, because a lot of people don't understand the versioning aspect of it. Like, oh, just show me what production is. Well, if you want to compare to what production was today and 2 days ago, we need to version it.
I think it's identified based on a build number, but it doesn't create the hierarchy.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so in that front, we maintain the hierarchy based on the stable chart version that we create for our microservice. So everything correlate with that, and obviously the build ID. And for every stable chart version, we have different set of all these reports generated.
A lot going on.
Yeah, I would say in our Red Hat offering, we have something called, I think it's the snapshot environment binding that essentially gives you a version. And what it is it's like, essentially it's storing like all the Git hashes of all the components that you've deployed together and what environments they're on and when. So.
You sound like Git bomb.
Yeah, it's not something that's like super user,
Yeah,
not user friendly at Surface, but it's there, so we can roll back, for example.
Yeah, and that's the part where we need to, hopefully, when we find out what the Guac team is doing, being able to actually make sense of all these hashes, because that's all we have is just a hash pointing to another hash and all that. So making this data navigatable is going to be interesting.
It's abstract.
So with hash,
I mean, it's true. It is just the hashes. That's what the version is. But yeah, unless something puts a reasonable version number on it.
Well, you can never trust the version number because you can fake that.
Are you being sarcastic?
Well, it's true. You can go and retag a version to any version number that you want, and take a.
That's true.
It's version numbers are not immutable like a hash. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's why we went with hashes everywhere, because they're very specific.
Yeah. Kat, I have a quick question for you on the Emporis side. Have you worked with any OCI registries that are backed by IPFS?
I have not. I think Alex has done a little bit with it. I'll ping him and then I can circle back.
Okay, perfect. Because the reason why I'm asking is there's another open source project that I was involved with. It's called Persia, and they're part of the CDF as well. And I have a meeting tomorrow with Stephen Chin from JFrog that started the project. And the whole concept behind Persia, one of the things that they're doing was a distributed artifact repository. And now with the way Emporis is adding on the search capabilities and all the fun stuff into the OCI registry, it would make sense if that could be applied on top of an IPFS. So you have the distributed network of the artifacts, the Emporis search capabilities, and then the Ortelius on top of that, gathering it all together. If that's possible, then it would take a huge chunk of the burden away from Persia building that artifact registry from scratch using a compliant one out there.
So I know we've talked about IPFS as early as the very beginnings of conceptual stage, and how that really fits well with the entire picture because of what you're describing. So I know that that's part of the goal.
Okay, cool.
But all of that comes down to the fact that it's just we're working on the OCI spec in the background, and anything that is OCI spec compliant just inherits all of those benefits, right?
Right. That's why I was just curious, because I know you can do your own back end implementation of the storage, and that's why I was curious if you thought about if you've run into an IPFS implementation.
Yeah, it's not something I personally have experimented with yet.
But Alex has.
I know that he's looked closer at the very least, and if it's something we want to kind of test out, it's something that I could throw together probably.
Don't worry about it yet. I need to get some more details and more direction from Stephen Chin. So the other side of Persia is the build consensus network, which I think they should focus on that part. And that's going to be my pitch tomorrow, is let's focus on the build consensus. So you build from the same git commit on 5 different nodes, and then they all come up and say, yeah, I created the same thing, and you get a consensus. And then after you have consensus, then you add it to the registry. So I want them to move away from creating a brand new artifact registry, use what's out there, and focus on the area of the build network that nobody else is doing. And I think it would be a great fit between the 3 projects.
I like where your head's at. One of the biggest concerns that I have about how all of the different projects are progressing right now is just the fact that so many people are needing to distribute new kinds of artifacts, whether it's awesome or whatever. And these solution silos are coming up with independent things that meet just their small niche case, without like taking on consideration of how we're trying to make sure that it's a healthy solution for the wider industry. So like Solo and their WASM only registry, things like that, right? Like not calling out companies, but just an example where I see that happening.
Yeah. All right, cool. That gives me something to go on for at least tomorrow's meeting.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? Yep.
Yeah, so on the since you already building that consensus part, right, in Persia, is there any plan to have a consensus on our side as well? Because that is one of the main property, right, for blockchain.
Right. So for us, because we're going through the XRPL ledger, that has a consensus built into it already. So when we add our records to the ledger, the XRPL layer will handle the consensus for us. So we don't have to reinvent any of that.
Okay.
So that's the nice thing about that. And also, because the the XRPL implementation, I think it's not, I had to double check. I looked into it before, but I believe it's proof of consensus instead of like proof of stake or proof what was the other one, proof of ownership. There's a bunch of different like approval models, for lack of proof models that are used in blockchain, and the XRPL is one of the fastest ones, because every block in the blockchain knows the state of it. So the state is persisted, so you don't have to go through and rebuild from the very beginning of time to come up with the right state. So that's one of the things in the XRPL that makes it very efficient, especially for like what we're doing, being able to get that proof of consensus. Something like Bitcoin, that's why they talk about mining a Bitcoin, that it takes so much resources, because if you want to add a new thing to the blockchain, and if you're not, you actually have to go from the beginning of time and calculate the state, which is just ridiculous.
Hey, Steve, can we go ahead and move this discussion over to the architecture call we're doing in 15 minutes?
Yep,
So everybody else can be on their
We're
way.
losing
Yes.
everybody.
You guys can go.
Yes, thank you. All right, guys.
Anything else?
Close our meeting.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead. Does anybody else have anything? Nope. All right.
All right,
Hey.
thanks all.
We'll see you.
Thanks, sir.